Hello, and a very warm welcome to another edition of Passions. And it's absolutely my pleasure today to be joined by Saul Davies. And some of you may know the name Saul Davies because Saul is actually in the band James. And Saul's going to talk to me today about his passion for music and his story about how he got into the band James and how he's developed his music abilities, etc., over the years. And then we're going to talk about something else that Saul's involved with, which is very, very interesting, called Everybody Belongs Here. So a very warm welcome to Passions, Saul.
Hello.
Short and sweet. Okay, Saul, so start off by...
Just like me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know whether we should do a height comparison right now, but we will. I'm actually 5'5" myself.
Ah, well, I've got you because I'm 5'5.5".
Oh,
so,
you show off.
Yeah.
So I could be the first. If we ever meet in person, I could be the first person that you're looking down on for quite a while.
Well, yeah, maybe. Anyway,
we digress. Okay, so start off by telling me about your passion, what it is, and how you've got into music in the first place.
Wow. It's I kind of, yeah, I mean, music is, I guess, my passion, and like for a lot of people who manage to make a living, it becomes their profession. Of course it's their passion, it's their thing that they, and we're very lucky, those of us who get to do that job as such are very fortunate, because we turn what essentially is a hobby or an escape from the real world. It becomes your world. Yeah, I mean, I guess all people who end up playing music one way or another start very young. And I guess, I used to bang the back of our sofa with a couple of paintbrushes along to Rolling Stones records, apparently, creating clouds of dust. So I think that music is a thing that you just do, really. It seems to be a way that we humans express ourselves. Is also a reflection, and it is a reflection of our humanity, I suppose, to some extent. Whether or not you're good at it or not, I don't think is the point. And I don't think, and I don't think it matters whether you're good or bad at it as such. It's just you do it, and we all do it. We all tap our feet. We all bang kitchen tables and annoy people, and yeah. So I mean, I guess I was fortunate as well, being brought up in a household that had a lot of music in it. I think it must be quite sad in a sense. That's maybe not the right word, but it's saddening to me to see that maybe even the majority of households, certainly in Britain, are now almost devoid of music that's shared. The dreaded disease of headphones and personal players, which only serves, trust me, I mean, we'll no doubt in the future people will look back at this time, and we might never escape the clutches of that technology, actually, but people will certainly recognize that it does nothing. Music is obviously an individual and personal pursuit, but it's also a communal activity, and headphones, personal players, all of that stuff has destroyed the communal activity, the communal sharing. There's nothing better in a house, though, I don't think, than hearing, a kid upstairs playing inappropriate music in defiance of parental anger. I did it, although my parents were broadly encouraging you know, all noise was good noise kind of idea. My daughter recently tried to annoy me by playing Paranoid by Black Sabbath really loud on vinyl. And I said to her, I did exactly the same thing to my parents. And it's such a great track that can't possibly annoy me. It's genius. There's no sound coming from you, Phil.
Is that okay?
That's good. I can
Yeah,
hear
sorry
you.
about that. Sorry about that. Yeah, I remember you're taking me back actually to my kind of young days, and I remember me and my sister used to have battles on who could play the music loudest. So she was into Elvis Presley and I was into David Bowie, and I do look back now and think, how the hell did my parents cope with us? Just I put it up a bit, she put it up a bit, I put it up a bit, she put it up a bit, and the whole house, and never mind the neighbours. But I don't know, back in those days, it just seemed to be more, I don't know, it just seemed to be acceptable and normal that was the case.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, I'm not, and it is still the case, I'm sure, but to some extent. But I don't. It's just not the. I don't. I think I was lucky to be brought up in the way that I was brought up, and at the time that I was brought up, in the sense that music was regarded as a communal activity, and I don't think it's quite the case anymore. And in a sense, I suppose it's a failing that bears witness to a failing which I see across the board in the music industry, really, which is, you know, music is very important in people's everyday lives, but is somewhat on the periphery to an extent, regardless of that, as are so many media, you know, in many ways.
Can you remember back when you think back? Can you remember when you started to? You're obviously listening to music, but can you remember when you started to want to play an actual instrument? Because I know you're a multi instrumentalist, if that's the right term, aren't you? You play a number of different musical instruments, as I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, well, I didn't. I started playing violin when I was 8. Yeah, and it was an opportunity to skip a maths lesson every week. I hated maths. I still do. I'm shit at it. I was then. I always will be. I love maths, actually. I love the idea of maths, but when you're 8, 9, or 10, and you literally don't know what 3 plus 3 is, and then, you know, it's much better to go and play violin.
Obviously, loads of people are into music. Lots of people start playing musical instruments, obviously. I was very lazy. I got into synthesizers and keyboards because I was that 80s was my kind of time. And it was amazing. I actually found that I could just press a button and switch a few switches around, and I could actually play a sound. Other than compared with the disciplines and dedication needed to play something like the violin. But how did it come about that you started to, in effect, make a living out of playing musical instruments? How did the James story come about?
Well, I mean, it was purely luck, and just a consequence of wandering into Band on the Wall in Manchester in early 1989 and meeting Larry Gott, actually, who now is no longer in James, but was a huge influence on the band, and a huge influence on me, really, very positively. And I just kind of bumped into me and asked me to join in, really. There was his friend Clive was playing there that night at Band on the Wall, and they were inviting people up onto stage, and I got up on stage and just joined in. I was kind of cajoled into doing so. I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway, and it was great, you know, to meet Larry. I got lots of offers that night to join bands. The violin isn't exactly very rock and roll, but nevertheless, Manchester isn't a very rock and roll town, really. It's full of jangly things, like a bag of old bones and jingly jangly. And so, well, you know what I mean? Like, you know, Wolverhampton and Birmingham are very rock and roll. You know, bands from there make a big noise, and you know, people from London practice too much. That's why there's no great bands that come out of London, actually, because they're all too obsessed with how many notes they can play. And then you've got these kind of outlying, you know, strange places like Glasgow and Sheffield, where I think all the best music actually comes from, in fact. But Manchester's so jangly and, you know, out jangled only by Liverpool, I suppose. So anyway, yeah, so being not a very rock and roll town, and being about attitude, the idea of just playing one note on a violin badly, which is what I did, went down very well that night. And Larry was certainly, he was like, you know, he explained to me that he played in a band that was signed to a record label, a real record label, and you know, I should go for an audition, which I did, and well, the rest, as they say, was downhill from there.
And did you ever actually think? Did you? Was it, you know? Did you actually? Were you confident that you could go to the levels of performance and of, I'm going to use this word in inverted commas, fame? Were you always confident that you could get up there, or you know, or was it really just a journey you went on and you just happened to get up there?
Oh, I don't think we ever got anywhere, really. I mean, I think we're the least famous, successful band in Britain. Unknown by our own families, even.
Yeah, but you say that, and I know that. I mean, I'm not an expert in music by any stretch of the imagination, but I knew who the band. In fact, I'd heard of you as well, but I knew the name of the band immediately.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but we're not. Yeah, but we, you know, given, I mean, we've almost sold out our tour for, it's a full calendar year before we get to tour in the big arenas, at the back end. So November, December next year. But I think 60,000 tickets have gone on sale, and as we speak, I think we've sold 53 or 54,000 of them.
Well, that's got to be telling you something.
Yeah, I know, but nobody knows who we are. So that's what I'm saying. We could be milling about in the foyer, right, of the MEN Arena or whatever the hell it's called these days, and somebody might go, that bloke over there looks like a guy in the band we've bought a ticket for. I mean, here's the thing, right? I think this is truly brilliantly funny story anyway, so in an attempt to be humorous and light, I will I'll tell you this quick story. So at some point, when we were selling a lot of records and we were on top of the pops and all the rest of it, we had a song called She's a Star. It was a big song, and it's a great song as well. And somebody came up to me in the street and said, "Oh, can I get your autograph?" And I was like, yeah, that's fine, you know, like whatever. And of course. And so I signed it and put a little J, you know, our band has this little J with a little flower on it, and all very jangly, you know. And the guy says to me, looked at it and went, "You and James?" I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "They're shite." And I said, "Oh, right. Why did you?" And I said, "Who did you think I was?" And he goes, "Paul McGann."
Oh no, you're joking.
Yeah. And I was so happy with that, because it's my favorite film, right? So with Neil and I, obviously. So I was so overjoyed with that. But there you go. Mistaken identity, famous for being mistaken for somebody else who I don't actually even look like. Anyway.
I wish I had a bit now you've mentioned it. I'm sorry to give you the bad news, but I can actually see, I can see that you might fall out with me now, but I can actually see a bit of a likeness. I can see where they got it from.
The fuel and wood situation. I mean, don't get me started, because I could just quote endlessly from it, you know.
Yeah, no. I totally get that. Okay, well, obviously, I can understand what you're saying. I think obviously a lot of people know certain songs. Like, I mean, "Sit Down's" must have become a massive hit everywhere, hasn't it? I think most people know that, don't they?
Yeah, I would guess so, and they'll also know. Actually, globally, the biggest song we've ever released is a song called "Laid," actually, uh, because it's so well known in America. But um, yeah, I suppose the point I'm struggling to make is that our music is much more successful than we are.
I get where you're coming from now, and I understand what you mean now in terms of recognizability, if that's a
Yeah,
word. Yeah.
I mean,
No,
I mean, a couple of members of my band are very happy to be unknown, almost, you know. And there's another couple of members of my band who would love to be more known than they are, and I'm not naming names. But
yeah.
but you know, I think what but there is a serious point to this, which is beyond the joviality, which is it's one of the reasons I think why I think my band feels quite probably there's a consensus among us that we feel like we've probably not had the success maybe that our music warrants. And it drives us. And really, for us, success means the following. There's an obsession in the music industry with success being gauged by numbers. And but what we forget when we do that is we forget why people make music and why they form groups. And people form groups because they want to just play together. A byproduct of playing and writing and performing is that people might or might not enjoy you. And obviously, the more that people enjoy you, the better it is, in a sense, unless you deliberately go out to make a form of music which is not meant to be accessible to other people and is just purely a reflection of something that you want to do. But nobody joins a group or forms a group to want to be famous or to want to be rich, because it won't happen. If you do it for those reasons, you will fail. You might get the numbers and you might even get rich and famous, but what you do will be meaningless and have no lasting effect. It won't be culturally significant. People might even know your name, but you don't exist outside of your own fame bubble. And it's essentially an ephemeral and pointless exercise. So for us, we don't fit into that category. We're a group who has made some great music and knows how to play it, but feels that it can reach a bigger audience. And we don't think reaching a bigger audience is great because we become more famous or we make more money, though those things would happen, obviously. They're a byproduct of playing in front of bigger audiences. I just think we feel that when you're standing in front of, and having said that, I will also now contradict myself by saying, and yet, so for example, this coming summer, we're going to play some festivals. It looks like some festivals will happen and we've been invited to play some of them, and we will play to some fields full of people and there'll be big shows. And so, and going back to my earlier point, we've almost a year in advance sold out a 60,000 capacity tour. So we're doing all right, but I think amongst my band we feel that we would be, and I also feel that it's coming. I actually think if you talk to me a year from now, or maybe 2 years from now, you'll be talking to somebody who I think we're going into some surprising territory. I think we've got wind in our sails. And I think when you get to 40 years a band, which is what we are now,
wow.
I think you something happens. Suddenly people who doubted you or ignored, didn't even know of you, suddenly get to know of you because something happens out there and it just changes. And you get more scrutiny. And I think that we deserve scrutiny and we can deal with it because we're good enough, and we're all alive.
which is a great bonus, especially after this last 9 or 12 months.
Well,
Do you
I don't know. I mean, if you want guaranteed sales, just kill the singer, I'd say.
Well, that's true. That's true. You do know, don't you, now that if your lead singer ends up getting killed in the next few days, I'll be a bit concerned as to why and how that happened. As soon as you've said that, do you still enjoy playing? Do you still love playing when you go up on stage and playing the actual music, playing the musical instruments? Do you still practice playing better on the musical instruments?
No, I don't practice. I don't think any of us do. I think practicing is for people who practicing as such is irrelevant to what we do. It's very hard to explain, and somebody would be like, that doesn't sound right, they must be crap then. But practicing is the antithesis of what you do if you're in a rock and roll group. You don't practice, you do it. That's the difference. Yeah. If this is Ron again, I'm going to kill it.
It's not. It's okay, take it. It's not a problem.
Oh, it's Simon. I'll kill him. Honestly, this is my life at the moment.
Yeah, and just to add to it, I'm here interviewing you as well, so there's no escape, mate. There's no escape.
I mean, we will. I mean, as a group, we'll practice as such. We'll rehearse prior to going and playing together again, of course. And there will be no doubt by the time we do that, there'll be new material to play and all the rest of it. So yeah, no, of course we do. But individually, I mean, I spend time at home. I've got a space that I can work in at home, and yeah, I spend time in there, and I make music and I record stuff, and I blah blah blah, and produce things, and whatever. So but I'm not specifically practicing. I'm not going, oh bloody hell, I've not done my 3 hours today. It's not like that. Yeah. It's more like you're a kid. How do you practice football when you're a kid? You just play Wally, don't you? You're not practicing. You're not practicing. You're doing it. It's different. Yeah, and that's the point.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you still get inspired by other bands and other music yourself, or do you tend to create most of it from within yourself?
Oh, it's all done from within. I mean, I try not to sound like anybody else. Although I have to say, in the last little while, I've done some things at home, even with the kids, right at home, which I know are quite they're quite referential to a genre, I would say, which is a kind of American southern gutsy, rough-arsed, kind of warm rock and roll, which is what we've been doing. Which is really interesting, because I'm not American, obviously.
Yeah. But obviously you've been over to America, I guess, and toured. Have you done any touring in America?
Yeah, I mean, the last time we were there was last summer, and I think it does come from that partly. But I've spent years in America touring, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm endlessly excited by new music that I hear. I mean, most of it is shite, but and essentially disappointing. But that's the way with everything. Most books are rubbish. Most films are rubbish. Most football that you watch is rubbish. Like, what you're looking for is the things that make it different and make it special,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I get that. Okay, so I'm conscious of time. Let's talk now then about
I've got thousands of phone calls to answer now. So,
so what you're saying is, Phil, for crying out loud, get on with it. Right, okay, I'm getting it. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
No, I'm saying.
Yeah. But you see, I'm a fellow Mancunian or fellow Northerner, so you can say what you like to me. Everybody belongs here. Everybody belongs here. Tell us about what it's about and what you're doing with it, because that's obviously how we came to connect in the first place.
Well, first of all, I don't believe it, right? I think everybody belongs here apart from... No. What EBH is an association of people, probably at the center of which is me, but very much came about through observation, really, and of by Vander, my partner, who witnessed a James song from our last record as we played it, and the audience reaction really to 3 lines of the song. There's only one human race, many faces, everybody belongs here. And I guess what we and it just gets an amazing reaction from the crowd, and a kind of big kind of sing along, something that my group is known for, our group is known for a lot. And it happens with this song, which is called Many Faces. And and it felt like there was an opportunity to do something based around those words to some extent, though not James' initiative, far from it. We took our impetus from that. It seemed to me like the more I thought about it, the more I realized there was a really appealing and set of values associated with those words that were applicable to lots of situations. And so we did a big event with Porto Football Club last January, well, this January, gone almost a year ago, and engaged with the club and their fans and all the rest of it. And it was I think it was judged to be a huge success in Portugal. It was an opportunity for people to engage with those words and have a think about some of the inequalities that are in football, based around accessibility and inclusion, I suppose, race mainly, and so obviously the world changed shortly after, with COVID appearing, but we by then Saatchi and Saatchi in London came along and said we'd like to help you develop the ideas that we had initiated in that campaign with Porto, and which was great. They wanted to help us and not charge us for the work that they do. So we've been working quite closely with Kerry Roper, who's the head designer at Saatchi, who's a wonderful human being and an amazing designer as well, and just great person, and also his colleagues. So we started working on some ideas over the summer, and then for what we might do. And then actually just a few short weeks ago, I was sitting at home and I was looking at the Guardian website and saw something that really upset me, really, actually. And I'm not ashamed to say that I ended in tears, actually, because just in frustration and sadness, really, that I read that the Church of England, who I'm neither a fan of nor not. I'm not a practicing Christian, so I don't have thoughts on what they do. No, and so what I came to understand was that the COV are funding and supporting up to 12,000 food banks across Britain, and I just thought that this was a bit shameful, really. Me personally, that I wasn't doing anything. Me nor my family suffer from food poverty. We're lucky enough not to be in that situation. And I just thought, well, I would like to think that the correct response for somebody who sees this would be, well, if you find yourself well off enough to not suffer from food poverty, then you should do something about it. And there's lots of politics around this, and it's of course there are, for good reason. And but my feeling was that apolitically, I would like to do something that didn't get wrapped up in, why the fifth biggest economy in the world, so-called, had need for 12,000 food banks. But just forget that, park that, and just try to do something about it, And so we decided that we would do an online event, like an online Live Aid almost, and armed only with enthusiasm and stupidity, set about destroying my own life for others. Jesus Christ comes to mind. Anyway, so we just started reaching out to people and started saying, "Hey, will you come and do something?" And for good reason, got a lot of people saying, "No, we don't believe it," and but I will name and shame those people later. And for all the good souls that decided that they would join us, well, a massive thank you. So what we're doing is we have people recording in Exeter, Dublin, Glasgow, Manchester, New York, Nashville, near Lisbon in Portugal, and some fantastic, amazing artists, some of whom are household names, some of whom are just new emerging artists. We're putting it together as an event that we call Music Feeds, and it will go out on the internet through Dice, which is the ticketing platform, and the aim is to raise funds for FareShare. Co-op are a brilliant institution, I've come to understand, who have partnered with us, and will make a significant donation to FareShare, who run food bank provision, and also there will be a further beneficiary to Help Musicians UK, who help to generate some welfare for some musicians and people who work in our live industry, crew members who've fallen through the cracks a bit. So that's what we're doing. And
fantastic.
That's what at the moment Everybody Belongs Here is involved in. So.
Fantastic. And I know obviously you can't name names, as we were saying, because I know you are on the phone at the moment, I suspect, and on email every day, just trying to get final numbers and final names and such like. But do you tend to find that when people say no, do you think there's an element of political reasons they say no, or they don't want to get drawn into the politics of it, would you say?
No, because I don't think it's a political issue. I mean, you can make it a political issue, and of course at heart it is a political issue, because again that question remains unanswered. Why do we have so many people who are suffering from food poverty? But it's not my place, as in for the benefit of our event and for the good of the process. It's not sensible to get caught up in the whys and wherefores of the politics of it. Marcus Rashford, for example, I think has been brilliant in taking that message quite confrontationally in a way to government and saying, because he took them on a particular issue, free school meals. In truth, I would say that we probably wouldn't be doing what we're doing if it wasn't for what Marcus has done. And I think what he's done also, which I think is quite brilliant, is I'm sure he didn't set out to do this, but what he's also done is he's shown that regardless of where you come from, and football is very divisive, and it should be divisive because it should be very competitive, but it should also be respectful.
Yeah.
So it can be competitive and divisive. It can even be aggressive. Actually, the game is aggressive. It's fast, it's aggressive, and it's physical. I wish it was a bit more physical, actually, than it used to be a little bit. I miss it. I do. I miss the physicality of some football that I was brought up with. I think footballers were better. For example, in the 70s, I think this current crop, they might have nice haircuts and some nice cars and big houses, but they're crap footballers. You
They're
know what I
very
mean?
well groomed. They're very well groomed, but
They're very well.
Not quite Norman Hunter. Let's put it that way.
Well, I don't think Norman Hunter was a very good footballer, but I think that they are. But I mean, could you imagine what? I mean, they're faster now. Football is faster. It's more athletic, but I don't think it's more skillful. Could you imagine what Jimmy Johnston, how Jimmy Johnston would be, what level he would be at in world football if he was playing now?
I know.
Schooled in the modern athleticism and all the rest of it. I mean, that guy was a pure genius. I mean, many people who see this, if anybody sees this, won't know who we're talking about. But you can't. What would you put him in? Top 5? I mean, for me, top 5, certainly top 10 of all time.
So you're obviously a football fan. Who do you follow?
I don't actually. All the teams that I loved, I've got so disappointed in. I don't watch anymore. I can't literally bring myself to watch them. I'm just like, I'm so appalled by what I see.
The commercialization of it, you mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, specifically, I mean, I during the 80s, because football was so violent, I didn't go to football in the 80s. In the 70s, I'd gone quite a lot to see teams like Hibs. My dad would take me to Easter Road to watch Hibs, Celtic and whatever. But I was born in Liverpool, so I always had this thing about Liverpool. And I was lucky enough to see a great game, actually, in the late 77, I think. 76 or 77. I saw them play at Anfield against Barcelona when Cruyff and Nayskins played for Barcelona. And ironically enough, when I moved to Barcelona in 1990, I was dragged along to the Nou Camp to watch football, and it was the first time I went to football again. And I was like, wow, this is football. This is a football stadium. This is how to enjoy football non-violently. And I saw Cruyff again standing at the side of the pitch now as a manager. So I fell in love with that team. They were not good at that point. This was the building of the dream team. They were pretty mediocre, but they had some amazing players. Stoichkov, Romario. I mean, these were great footballers, So I got into that team, and then throughout the 90s, I was like a lone voice supporting Barcelona. I saw recently some footage of me playing on stage in one, I can't remember what TV show it was, and I had my Barca flag over the front of my amp, and people would be like, "Oh, are they any good?" And I'd be like, "Oh, they're getting there." You know what I mean?
Probably thinking I didn't know he was Spanish. I didn't know Saul Davies was Spanish.
But what happened was that, of course, they became what they became, and it coincided with the globalization maybe of football and the growth of TV and the growth of social media and all the rest of it. So football became very, 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 very big very quickly, and Barcelona were at the pinnacle of it. And I was still okay with that, although I was a bit like, ugh, where's this going? And really, I mean, I was lucky enough to go with my son Vincent to the 2011 Champions League final when they beat Man U at Wembley. I mean, that should have been 10-1. It was 3-1, but I mean, it could have been 15-1. It was like watching something. It was like watching two totally different sports. It was just unbelievable. Really, And I think I witnessed maybe one of the greatest performances by any footballer maybe that's ever been on a pitch that day, which was Xavi played. Really, he was heading towards the end of his career at that point, but it was just a display of football beyond which you can imagine. It's like, how do you do that? Anyway. Yeah, but the way that club has now disavowed its roots and decided to turn its back on everything, and they've still got the cheek, the bastards, to troll out the Mejkeon club, which is more than a club. And it's not more than a club. It's worse than a club. It's less than a club. it's really truly appalling what they've done to that unbelievable institution. So I had to turn my back on them because I just find it so desperate, and I hope they win nothing. I hope that they lose. I hope that they, I'd love to see them relegated and have to go back to stage one and go, what did we do? Why are we no better than Rotherham? No disrespect to Rotherham, but I mean, or Dundee or whatever.
Yeah.
But why are we at the level of Lincoln?
Yeah.
City? Well, you're at the level of Lincoln City because you ballsed it up.
Yeah.
And that would be justice to me. They forgot everything that made them great in the first place.
Wonderful. Right, mate. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you go because I know you got 4 million phone calls to make. Thanks ever so much for joining me today. Obviously, I know we're trying to help you and support.
How did we get onto football from that? I don't know how we did that.
I've absolutely no idea, but all the best interviews go off all over the place. And this has been no different, which is great because that makes it more fun and more enjoyable. And I know there's lots more I could talk about and lots more I could chat to you about. And maybe I need to get a part 2 with you at some point, maybe after the event, obviously after the Everybody Belongs Here event. But very best of luck with it. I hope it goes well. I know we're helping you with a few bits and pieces at our end, so obviously anything we can help you to do to support it is very much our honor. So obviously people can probably see the website address there at the bottom, everybodybelongshere.com.
And it's going to be amazing, really. I mean, I fully expect that what will happen is, and it should be this way. I mean, it's probably going to end up being about 3 hours of music up there, God knows. But we've got a lot of artists, and great, why not? People can go and make cups of tea doing stuff they don't like, and then come back again. But the idea is that if a family wants to buy a ticket for a tenner, I think that's good value for money, and there'll be a donate button as well. So if anybody thinks it's a particularly successful event or something that they want to, then they can always make an extra donation to us. But the vast majority of these monies will be going exactly where they ought to go to, and the co-op will match everything that comes in. So which is brilliant of them, and more. I think it's a very, very, very good thing for people to get involved in, and we'll show some solidarity between us all. I think that's the point.
Yeah, and I think it'll be nobody knows for certain, but I think this time next year everything will look very, very different, and you guys will be gigging again, and I think the demand for live entertainment is going to go through the roof when people can start to get back into stadia and places, because they'll have been starved of it, Sol, and I think people will just can't wait to get to a live concert.
Maybe again. And I'm not pretending that this is this is not an anti, I mean, this is there's no substitute if you're a live music fan for being in a live event, but everybody involved in this is recorded live. Everybody's been super amazed, and with the opportunity to get back on a stage and play. Most of the artists we've managed to put into venues, which is also great. So they're back on stages, though there's no one there, that you can see there's a palpable excitement. I was working yesterday with Steve Mason. He's an amazing artist. His band previously was the Beta Band, very well known in the kind of indie scene. He's a really lovely man and a great artist. And he was just like, he couldn't get over the fact that he was standing on a stage with some lights on him, and he was really nervous. And he was like, it was beautiful. It was beautiful what he did. It was fantastic. And he was just like, oh, I can't believe it. And that's the experience that everybody's having. So there is something special coming down those cameras and going down those microphones, as well. So
100%.
It's
100%.
Going to end up being an interesting. This event will end, and those recordings, I think, will end up being a very interesting testament to the time that we've lived in, actually, as well as being an opportunity to raise some awareness and funds. I think it's also going to end up being a little bit of a document of our time, actually. Yeah,
almost a legacy of 2020 in a musical sense.
Yeah, I think it will to some extent.
I can see how that would be the case. No, absolutely. And I guess keep an eye on the website as well for announcements of of other people that you might be still threatening with whatever you're threatening them with to get involved. But fantastic. I'm going to let you go, mate, because I know I could keep talking to you, and it's always dangerous, especially to get two Northerners together. Right. Thanks ever so much, Saul. Appreciate your time, and fantastic, great interview, and thanks for your candid openness, and obviously all the very best luck and for the event.
Thanks very much for your time, Phil. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Saul. Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.